NoMüNoMü-Michael. He is the author of the famed Empire trilogy, Declaration, and most recently a book called Assembly. These are all philosophical works that examine both the structures and exploitations of contemporary globalism and movements of resistance against those structures and exploitations. So exciting stuff. Tonight he will speak to us from his most recent work on the question, where have all the leaders gone?
Trying to figure out how I'll do this with my lap. So thanks to Aaron, thanks to Joseph, and to the WPA. I'm grateful for this. Part of what I was hoping was to use this book publication as a excuse or a pretext to come to go various places around the country, or even a little bit more, and talk to people and see what's going on and learn from them. So I do have to, I think that's the way these things work, I do have to speak a certain amount and try to put out some ideas. What I want mostly is to have a discussion afterwards. But I'll try, I think, 35 to 40 minutes of presenting some ideas that I'm hoping then could be set off, kind of discussion, objections, denunciations, and such. So my co-author Tony and I started writing this book or working on these themes after the so-called leaderless movements in 2011, 2013, 2014. So starting with, say, the cycle from Tunisia and Egypt through Madrid to Zuccotti Park in Oakland, something like that, as the 2011. And then 2013-14, we were thinking both about the Gezi Park Turkish movements and in Brazil also that summer, and then of course Ferguson, the various Black Lives Matter. That's helpful, thank you. So this was, I hope that maybe that context was already obvious to you. I mean, so what we were asking, it isn't quite even that we were asking it. It's more like what we perceived were active questions for activists in these different movements was about this question of organization or question of leadership. Here's maybe the obvious part. And this is what I gave as the description, which I think some of you already saw, that each year there's a new eruption of so-called leaderless movements, like in the ones I just named. And that not only are the police and journalists and political analysts perplexed by them, but that activists too. And activists too are having trouble understanding why, when these movements express the needs and desires of so many, why they have not been able to achieve lasting change and create a more just society. Some assume, this is actually not my assumption, but I think it's worth confronting, some assume that if only the movements could find new leaders, they would return to their former glory or be able to create lasting transformation. And so that's the question to start out from. Where have all the leaders gone? This question about organization also, here's another obvious thing to start out with, becomes more urgent today with the rise of right-wing movements and governments throughout the world. Like, clearly we need protest, yet by right-wing movements and governments throughout the world, I think you and DC are doubly disadvantaged. It's not just like people in the US where I think there's a tendency to think about Trump as the exception, whereas actually globally Trump's not the exception. And it's good sometimes to, it's depressing. I'm not saying this, but to recognize the continuity of this. But clearly we need to protest in a variety of ways, but also maybe equally clearly, protest is not enough. We need to create real alternatives, and it seems to me that the movements are central to that. Hence the need for asking these questions about the effectiveness of the movements. So the simple answer to this question, where have all the leaders gone? Now I'm going to try just a little bit of historical backup, just to get a running start at it. The simple answer to that question, where have all the leaders gone, is that they're all dead or in prison. You know, either through targeted assassinations or through the variety of other weapons of repression, legal persecution, entrapment, media campaigns, even turning leaders into celebrities, which is sometimes in order to co-opt them, much more commonly criminalizing protests. All with this general idea that if you cut off the head, the body will die. And so that each country can create its pantheon of these leaders. I'm sure some of you know can do better than me at this. I mean, I was thinking of Rosa Luxemburg, Antonio Gramsci, Che Guevara, Fred Hampton, Nelson Mandela, Ibrahim Kapakaya. These were ones that just came to mind for me in various countries. Anyway, so that's the first answer. It's probably going to say that one first. But the more profound answer, or seems to be the more important answer, like I say, to the question of where have all the leaders gone in the social movements when you're thinking about it, sort of in the 20th century.